A year after the global success of Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise is back, putting cinemagoers on his shoulders and dragging us to the promised land. He's not the cinema savior we deserve, but he's the one we need right now. He's been a megastar for decades, but who would have thought that a 5'7", 60-year-old Scientologist would be the person responsible for bringing out the biggest crowds and keeping the theater-going experience alive. Last year, he resurrected the Top Gun IP with one of the best films of the year, and audiences responded to the tune of $1.5 billion plus at the box office and an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture. This year, he strikes again with the seventh installment of the Mission Impossible franchise, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. It's an absolute banger of a movie that's the best time in the theater you'll have all year. It continues the Mission Impossible legacy of being the quintessential popcorn action movie. Dead Reckoning is thoroughly entertaining, never lulls, is shot exquisitely by seasoned director Christopher McQuarrie. With the steady acting hand of Tom Cruise and co-stars on the screen, this one comes highly recommended if you like to have fun. There's an idea of an earnestly made movie. When filmmakers give you exactly what you expect from them, when their intent shines through on the screen. The last few years, Tom Cruise and company have been delivering that in spades, and they've been a beacon of light during an era of Hollywood when they're reliant on the safest bet possible, meaning we receive mostly bland, boring, or outright awful films made without any desire to balance commerce with art. Dead Reckoning provided exactly what I needed. A great time at the theater, with literal edge-of-my-seat moments and something that actually felt like it was worth the price of admission, which is hard to come by in modern times. Tom Cruise might come off a bit eccentric in real life, but if I had to pick one person in the world to call a born entertainer, it would be him. He's given some wonderful performances throughout his illustrious career in a wide range of genres. My favorite performance of his is easily the supporting role in Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, and he showed off his comedic chops as the disgusting producer in Tropic Thunder.
My fist is going to be so far up your shithole that every time you have a thought, it's going to have to tiptoe past my wedding ring.
But he's also one of the greatest action film stars of all time. Up there in my book with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Keanu Reeves, if we are talking exclusively Hollywood productions. There's something distinct here. In my opinion, Schwarzenegger has some of the best action movies of all time under his belt, with Predator and the first two Terminators, and Keanu has the original Matrix movie, as well as a couple greats with Speed in the 90s and the original John Wick. I wouldn't consider anything Tom Cruise has been in to be one of the greatest of its genre on an individual film level, but the Mission Impossible franchise as a whole is so consistently entertaining, it's one of the best action franchises ever. That's a testament to Cruise's commitment to his craft. Let's face it, with 5 directors and 7 entries, this franchise is what it is because of Tom Cruise. Besides the enduring draw of Cruise, the MI series is known for spectacular action sequences, involving some elevated and daring stunts and increasingly intense set pieces as the movies progress, mostly performed by or involving Tom Cruise himself. The man is renowned for doing most of his own stunts, making the films feel more authentic and exactly what I'm looking for, an earnestness in the craft. And while it's a popcorn movie franchise to the max, they also have some pretty engaging storylines. They follow a formula set from the original television show the franchise is based on, where our hero Ethan's presented with a new mission to kick off the story that flows through twists and unexpected revelations. Dead Reckoning maintains that consistency that might have reached a fever pitch with 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout. If you enjoyed that one, this one's definitely for you. While Fallout was the conclusion of a 3-part story, Dead Reckoning continues the high-octane action, intrigue, and clever twists and turns. Dead Reckoning follows Ethan Hunt once again, this time set on a mission to find 2 pieces of a key that can disable a rogue artificial intelligence that's become sentient. Every major power on the planet is attempting to find the key, because whoever controls the AI, known as the Entity, will essentially have the power to control the world. Ethan assembles his team of Benny, Luther, and Ilsa Faust, and along the way crosses paths with a thief named Grace, played by Hayley Atwell in her Mission Impossible debut, who has also been tasked with acquiring the key. Now let's get one thing straight. The action in this movie is fucking incredible. Dead Reckoning continues the Mission Impossible tradition of unreal set pieces and international locations locations, meaning each action sequence has its own distinct flair and style. Tom Cruise might be starting to look his age, and that's okay because he looks pretty damn amazing for 60 years old. But regardless of that, it seems like nothing is slowing him down. There's something really unique knowing that it's him doing all of this crazy shit. Jumping off a motorcycle after leaping off a cliff and parachuting onto a moving train, car chases, car crashes, and horse chases. It's a thrilling experience. And the use of exotic locations adds an incredible backdrop to the stunts and action sequences, giving Dead Reckoning as well as previous films in the franchise an enormous global blockbuster feel without having to resort to CGI. And let's face it, when it comes to danger, we know Ethan is going to make it. And that shouldn't be shocking because it literally says Part 1 in the title. But even so, I was still on the edge of my seat multiple times. Seeing it in IMAX surely enhances the thrills, but it's never about is Ethan going to live or die, it's more about how is he going to get out of this one. There's a huge dedication to the craft of filmmaking going on behind the scenes to bring all of this insane stuff to the screen. There's a ton of behind the scenes footage Paramount Pictures released over the past several months, revealing the bike jump alone as one of the biggest stunts in cinema history, with filming it so complex that the cameras used weren't even available just 2 years prior. That level of dedication is something normally reserved for the likes of James Cameron, who pushes the boundaries of special effects and VFX. But with Cruise and McQuarrie, they're trying to push things to the max in reality, not behind a computer screen. Oh, and they actually made an entertaining movie, unlike Avatar 2. McQuarrie's more in line with the Christopher Nolan school of filmmaking. If you can do it for real, then do it for real. It's a pleasure to get away from the Marvel Cinematic Universe brand of CGI-infested, blurred, hollowed-out visuals, to have something on the screen that's tangible, that really exists, that really happened and was caught on film. Not something filmed against the green screen and passed off to an overworked VFX artist to do their magic. Because nothing can replace the real thing. This movie had a budget on par with an MCU movie, but its costs increased exponentially when the pandemic struck, with multiple delays happening requiring filmmaking to take place over multiple shooting periods. A far cry from a Marvel movie that can be filmed and dumped off to have the rest generated in a computer. Speaking of computers, the core of the plot centers around artificial intelligence run amok, threatening the world. These things can go either way between cringe and good depending on how it's handled, but I think the delays in filming might have actually benefited the film. Mission Impossible is always over the top. Not Fast and Furious level over the top, but pretty extraordinary nonetheless. And when the AI, aka the entity, was introduced, I was worried for a second. But honestly, with the introduction of ChatGPT and the flourishing and expanding use of artificial intelligence over the past several months, this concept doesn't seem remotely far-fetched at all now. It seems like a natural progression of reality that the series is following when it comes to dealing with real-world concepts. The entity is able to take control of electronics at any time, which is a great concept on paper but could be used as a storytelling crutch. Thankfully, the script is smart with the way this is utilized, giving it some form of boundaries so it never seems overused or contrived when it's implemented. Outside of AI, we do have humans. The cast for the MI movies have always been great, and Dead Reckoning Part 1 is no different. I mean, what else can I say about Tom Cruise? He's the man. This dude is a national treasure. And it'll be a sad day when he's too old to do the patented Tom Cruise run across the screen. But it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing that day anytime soon. He's so damn famous, it's hard to see him as anyone other than Tom Cruise. But for what it's worth, he embodies the character of Ethan Hunt. And this series simply doesn't exist without him, whether we're talking about behind the scenes or on the screen. Hayley Atwell makes a great addition to the cast, and her character, Grace, is cheeky in all the right ways. She's not the annoying kind of strong female character that Hollywood loves to try and shove down everyone's throats in modern times. Everything she's capable of doing makes sense. It's explained and she's a fully formed character. It's great to see Hayley Atwell in a larger role that isn't an independent film or the character Peggy Carter. She deserves to be a huge star. And it would be odd to have a Mission Impossible movie without Ving Rhames. And the man, the myth, the legend is here where he belongs. He plays great off of Simon Pegg's Benji, and after multiple films together, their chemistry is obvious. Esai Morales plays Gabriel, the new antagonist for the Dead Reckoning films, and so far in Part 1 he delivers a solid performance. He's particularly menacing in a few scenes, but there's nothing extraordinary about Gabriel so far. It's a Mission Impossible movie, so he's perfectly comic booky in nature, and he has a connection to Ethan's past which will surely be explored a bit more in Part 2. But so far he's a serviceable villain that isn't really wowing me. Esai Morales is a great actor who's appeared as a supporting role or villain in a number of movies and TV shows over decades, so I hope he has something more to sink his teeth into in Part 2. Unfortunately for the Mission Impossible series, there will never be anyone who can top Philip Seymour Hoffman's villainous turn as Owen Davison in Part 3. Easily the greatest antagonist in the franchise's history and one of my favorite screen villains ever. It's hard to contend with one of the finest actors to ever live. But Esai Morales' character of Gabriel still has room to become more menacing. Dead Reckoning's directorial choices by Macquarie are confusing at times if you haven't seen the previous entries. Interestingly, a number of test screenings were reportedly by a younger generation of people who had never seen any Mission Impossible films. A reminder that Cruise has been playing Ethan Hunt for almost 30 years. And Macquarie uses a lot of Dutch camera angles and techniques throughout the movie, which I thought was an odd choice until I realized it's a bit of a throwback to the original movie directed by Brian De Palma. De Palma used the same camera angles frequently throughout his illustrious career, and it stood out to me a lot in the first MI movie. Macquarie emulates De Palma's style, using the camera angles to increase tension in dramatic scenes, but he sticks to his own beautiful shooting style when filming action. There's a scene wrapping up the second act that felt like a visual throwback to the original movie too, reminding me of the scene when Kittredge confronts Ethan in the restaurant, one of the most famous scenes in the franchise when he's jumping away from the exploding fish tank. Yes, exploding fish tank. All this is done without any form of nostalgia baiting. These things are subtle, not forced at all, and are more there for long-term fans without interfering with the story or stopping to hit the viewer over the head with memba berries. While Dead Reckoning is only half of the story with Part 2 scheduled to release next summer, it still holds its own as an excellent entry. No, it doesn't stand on its own because we're missing the conclusion here, but it doesn't suffer the same issues a lot of cliffhanger entries and franchises do. Captain Jack Sparrow was swallowed by the Kraken. Han Solo was encased in carbonite. Neo was trapped in the train station. These sort of moves leave you wondering what is happening to the hero and still needing a conclusion to the main story. But with Dead Reckoning, there's a satisfying ending to the film while we're waiting for a conclusion. Basically, what I'm getting at is that nearly every aspect of this movie was well thought out, planned, and executed, and it's going to absolutely dominate the rest of the summer. And it's going to dominate for the same reasons Top Gun Maverick did, because it's a no agenda, no bullshit, honest to goodness, entertaining movie. It's bizarre that this kind of movie is so few and far between. Admittedly, when it comes to independent films, there are some great movies that come out every single year. Last year, Pearl was my favorite movie hands down, and that cost $1.5 million to make. But when it comes to big blockbusters, they're made in every way possible that audiences simply aren't responding to anymore. It's like big budget movies are made on a conveyor belt. There's so much riding on their success that everything feels sanitized, neutered, completely stripped of anything worthwhile, and coming out as hollow, lowbrow pieces of shit. Look how well Disney's done this year. It milked the nostalgia bait bullshit for a few years before reality has hit them in the face, losing nearly $1 billion at the box office over the last year. On top of that, modern blockbuster films feel the need to fill a diversity quota or push some sort of political agenda forward into their films, emphasizing these things more than good storytelling, least of all emphasizing great filmmaking. It's a perfect storm of crap, and that's why movies like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny bombed a few weeks ago, why Little Mermaid was a stinker and a money loser. Yet a film like Top Gun Maverick and John Wick 4 blast off at the box office and critical success. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is in the same ballpark because Tom Cruise and company, an extremely diverse cast, have no interest in pushing agendas into their films. They're here to entertain you. Take a look at Haley Atwell's character. She's not the modern idea of a strong, independent woman. And what I mean by that is she's not a character who's smarter, better, and one-ups the main character we actually paid to see, with no rhyme or reason other than it's a writer self-insert. No, she's incredibly intelligent, swift, clever, and gets the better of Ethan a few times, but she has limits. She can't do all the things Ethan can do because literally no one can. It helps develop her into a real character instead of some hollow entity written in by a screenwriter. Every character's backstory paints a portrait of who they are and why they're capable of doing what they're doing. There's no Rey Palpatine anywhere to be found in Dead Reckoning. There's no one upstaging Ethan Hunt regardless of who it is. He's the man we came to the theater to see, and that's what we get. It's actually pretty wild to think that Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was the same age as Tom Cruise is in this movie. It's like night and day. Ford looked and performed great in Crystal Skull despite the movie being trash, don't get me wrong. But Cruise is on another level. He's still performing and running around the screen like an absolute maniac at 60 years old. It's absolutely unbelievable. Mission Impossible 7 is going to be one of the biggest blockbusters of the year and is about to put Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny to shame, just a few weeks apart. It's everything an action movie should be, and in a lot of ways, everything a movie should be, if we boil it down to one word: entertaining. At 2.5 hours, I couldn't believe how fast the time had passed. I was fully invested in simply having a blast at the movies, a relic of a concept in modern times. It made me go back and start rewatching the entire series from the start, and it's too bad I have to wait an entire year for part 2 to come out. I hope Hollywood continues to take notes from Tom Cruise, stop making agenda-pushing propaganda, and get back to making great movies like this one. GG's.